We're going to have the sons, all 9 of us, if you could come up now. And we're going to share some memories. We're going to try to do 2 or 3 minutes each. So if you see one of us fighting for the mic, that probably means their time's up. Yeah. No speeding ticket this time. That's number 8. Just so you know.
I will remember Dad for many things, but today I'd like to highlight the way he used a short phrase or brief advice to sum up a situation. His quick wit and go-to expressions were his way of using charm as the wrapper on the truth of his position. A few months ago, Mom had set out a puzzle on the dining room table. We were visiting and we asked Dad why he was in his recliner and not helping with the puzzle. He paused and then proclaimed, "I live with a puzzle." I couldn't get away with that if I tried that. That was an off-the-cuff expression that I had not heard before, but he also had some go-to lines when he wanted to state his case. For example, if he encountered a new type of food that he was not interested in trying, he would declare, "A farmer does not eat what he does not know." Dad's faith was not in your face, but it was ever present and he was not ashamed, telling us that in times of trouble, he would cry out to God, or that you would need to give until it hurts, were his way of saying that he's been through ups and downs and can attest to God's faithfulness. He would even use his suit jacket to get his point across. If he tried on a new one for one of the countless weddings, it had to pass the praise the Lord test. If you raise your hands and the sleeves are too short, it's not the right size. This one's not the right size. Dad enjoyed sports and was very talented. When he taught us how to play, he gave us pointers via his phrases and demonstrated large amounts of patience. Chess, countless times he would emphasize, "Don't move so quick," which would often be followed by something like, "Are you sure you want to do that? Take that move over." Or golf, "Keep your head down and don't kill it." Those were his mantra. By the way, as a side note, I think he measured enjoyment of golf by whether he found some juicy blackberries and if he ended the round with more golf balls than he started. He even custom built a massive extendable rake to drag through ponds and find as many golf balls as possible. Dad used few words, but they carried much weight. My dad could sum up things in a phrase, but how could I ever express what he meant to me? I love you and I'll miss you.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I'm son number 8. It's true, I was speeding this morning to be on time, and I thought of Dad. Just took the edge off that little bit. The song I was listening to at the time was "I Believe I Can Fly." It's true. My dad had a marvelous singing voice. I was thinking what I could tell you about my dad, and Mom had a certain song that she wanted us to sing today, and I asked her if I could sing it, and in a few minutes, I'm going to do that. Less than a few minutes, guys. But maybe if you recognize the song, you'll be able to sing it with me. But Dad had this amazing talent of being able to make songs up on the fly. We would be sitting at the dinner table and he would make up a jingle and my mom would blush and giggle and we all 9 boys would get such a kick out of that. And my dad, you know, he could substitute words for little syllables like dia, dom, or something like that. He could fit those into any song, any tune, and I don't know if it was because he didn't know the words or he just had a sort of a spontaneous freestyle about him. He was very much an innovator, and it expressed itself in a lot of ways in his life, his work habits, his problem solving, but in his music too. And I mean, you could take a song like we did this morning, The Old Rugged Cross, and so he could just insert that, like, Di-a-la-dum, la-da-dee, a-da-dum, la-dee, a-da-da-da-da-dum. You guys recognize that kind of, you know, and you could do any tune, those 5 syllables, you know, it was incredible. And for me, that was just so contagious, you know, and even though there was no words, it was just these syllables sometimes, it was meaningful. It felt moving because besides the words, there was something going on inside him, you know, that was moving him. It was alive inside him, this joy, this cheerfulness, this optimism. You know, he wasn't a naysayer. He was an optimist. He always, I don't know, maybe deep down, you know, he was like paddling hard, but somehow he's like, there'll be a way, you know, and he had this joy and this look on the bright side, and this, it came out in his spirit, and you wanted to connect with that. I wanted that, you know, and it was in his voice when he sang. Even if I didn't know the tune, I knew the spirit that was behind it, you know. And this one song that Mom reminded us of, it's an old chorus, like David said, for the old timers, right? When I remember what he's done for me, to my sins I will never return, right? And like for my dad, even if he wasn't saying the words, like there was that thing was driving him inside, and it was anchoring him. And I think whatever he was humming or singing, you know, he could be, you know, if you know the song, if you don't, you could just kind of mimic my dad. Like the tune would be something like this, and then I'll be done. Dee-a-da-dee-a-da-da-dee-a-dum, la-da-dee-a-da-dee-a-da-dum. And when I remember what he's done for me, to my sins I will never return. When I remember what he's done for me, to my sins I will never return. No, 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 to my sins I will never return. No, 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 to my sins I will never return. And when I remember what he's done for me, dee-a-da-la-da-dee-a-da-dum. Thanks, Dad.
All right, thanks, Andrew. You took all my time. So I'm going to be really short and sweet, like a true preacher. It sounded like he was wanting to preach there, but what do I say? I'm blessed. I had a whole bunch of thoughts and then last night, as I was just thinking about today, all I could think about was, I'm blessed. When I think about my dad, he was 19 when he left home. Holland, Europe, came to Canada. I don't know what, I always lived under his umbrella. I always lived knowing when I took a risk, he would be there. And here he was at 19, working 2 and 3 jobs so that we could be here, so that we could have this incredible life. And so all I could think about is how blessed I am and how thankful I am. And one memory, because I have my kids, they used to love Opa. And on a Sunday afternoon, he'd grab a golf club and start balancing it on his nose. Then he would take a chair and he'd start balancing that on his nose. And then he went even better, and he got out a bicycle. And he put that on his nose, and he would balance. And I could never do that. My kids loved Opa because he would balance things on his nose. He would grab a sharp steak knife, and he had the biggest muscles that I remember ever as a little kid. That his bicep, and he'd pick up that steak knife and he'd drop it, and it would just bounce off his bicep. And we thought that was the most amazing thing ever. And so when I think about my dad, I think about my kids enjoying their Opa, and I just think about how blessed I am. Thank you.
My memories of Dad, he had the phrases. Another phrase was, not a handful, but a landful. He always told that as young men when we were looking for girls. But he made sure we ended up with one. I have a memory very, very early on. One of my first memories that I have was in Victoria in the Inner Harbor. And he was holding me in his arms, and we were watching a huge fireworks display. And I don't know if it was 1967, because I would have been 1.5 to 2 years old or later, but it was very early on. And I remember him, and with pride in his voice, he whispered in my ears, "Never forget this day." And I never did. Words are so amazing. I remember another time when we got up, we had to count, and we were missing one. But we used to go to a church in Burnaby called Boundary Road Fellowship, and there were numerous times when we would have to count how many were in the van on the way home, because sure enough, Mom and Dad would have forgotten one of us. I remember as a young boy, I'm number 6, and so after me, they took a break, like a year. And if you ever talk to my mom and dad, it was like, what's going on? We're not having another child. So I don't think they really took a break on purpose, but I always considered myself either the youngest of the oldest or the oldest of the youngest, and I would have to go to work with my older brothers. And but because I was the youngest and I had some accidents happen to me, my dad probably had strict orders from my mom to bring home David in one piece. And so he would take me, and these guys might not even know it, but he would take me to do pickups and deliveries, and I didn't have to work. And so my memory of him was like, I've got to get a job like that. Another thing I remember, when I was dating my wife, I was getting ready to go away for like 2 days, and it was like a long time that I wouldn't see her. And so we were outside, and it was dark, and well, I'm a young man, hormones. I'd like to give her a kiss goodbye. My mom would have chased us, but my dad came and he flashed the lights a couple times. And it was like, oh, he's here. Dad, you taught me how to work. You taught me how to give. Taught me how to laugh, how to love. You taught me how to drive, but I might like to have a redo on that one. I never remember my dad ever missing a service. Never. And sometimes we would be busy, and I would remember coming here to this campus and having a service on a Wednesday night, 7 to 8:30, what they would refer to as action night, all church training in one night. And we'd go home afterwards, and then he'd put on his work clothes, and he'd go back down to the shop. He taught us how to honor God's house. I'm thankful for that. When we were kids, we never ate out on Sundays, but we'd invite people to the house. Some of that might be old-fashioned, but it was good. Now I enjoy going out on Sundays. Peter mentioned all the kids and families. I'm not sure if we ever had a moment when there was not somebody in the house. And what a beautiful display. And I know us boys, being really smart and wise, wiser than my dad, would sometimes say, Dad, don't support them. Have them pay their own way. Because he'd pay their tuition to Bible college, and they weren't very good workers. And we'd say, Dad, you're not getting your money's worth. And he'd smile and he'd look at us and he says, that's between me and God. And I think he came out on the better end. I also remember a verse, and it's still hanging up, Mom, in your bedroom. This last week and a half, when we got to spend the most amazing week, a weekend with Dad that was phenomenal. He could talk to us on Sunday, and he passed away on the Monday. Such a beautiful memory. But you have a verse from Mark chapter 8, and I'll close with this. It says, what shall a man profit if he gains the whole world and loses his soul?
I'm son number 5. And I wasn't part of that conversation about the workers not working hard enough, just so everyone knows that. Passion, driven, faith, prosperity. These are words that I think of when I think of Dad. Acting in faith, thinking big, taking things to the next level, and being extreme were all part of Dad's everyday life, starting at home with his family. He had 9 sons. That's pretty extreme. That's thinking big. One fond memory I had, or I have, is of our routine haircutting, for example. It was pretty extreme. Dad developed a system so he could cut all our hair in super speed. He lined us all up and buzzed us. With a huge family, Dad didn't buy just a house or just a building lot. He bought huge property, acres and acres of land to set up home. And he didn't build just a house. He built a huge house, thousands of square feet, for his growing family. He took care of us. And he treated us with luxury amenities. Dad was an extreme provider. Dad got interested in koi at one time. Now, this was just for fun. Koi was just a hobby. It was an interest. But in his thinking big fashion, he built dozens of ponds all over the place, all over the property. He built tanks, filtration systems. He built a huge atrium to put all this equipment in. That's pretty extreme. Dad wanted tropical fish, so he built an oversized, overhead, 5,000-gallon saltwater fish tank in his living room, suspended from the ceiling. That's pretty extreme. Dad constantly exercised his faith in business, starting with a small fabricating business in the basement of his home. He led to a large, successful manufacturing company with a huge plant in Surrey. We've heard lots about it, but that was extreme. That was faith, and that was extreme living. Dad acted in faith consistently, and he gave to the Lord's work through many ministries. Dad lived a Christ-centered life. As he would often say, give to the Lord the fruits of your labor. That's money, guys. God will take care of the rest. Not only did Dad give of his money, his time, but he also set up and supported many missions in countries all over the place. He had extreme faith. That's my dad.
Thanks. Thank you. I'm number 4, Stephen John. I'd like to start off with a short hymn that my dad loved, so in honor of him. It says, because often he was asking God for strength, and he would say, here's my cup, Lord, I lift it up, Lord, come and quench the thirsting of my soul. Bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more. Here's my cup, I lift it up and make me whole. So there's so many stories that I don't want to be repeating, so let's change it up. Let's play a game. The game is called Did You Know? So I'm going to tell a little something about Dad, and if you've heard it before, maybe today, maybe you experienced it, then you nod your head and smile, okay? If it's something you've never heard before, you can't believe it because it's too crazy, then shake your head and smile, okay? So that's the game. Let's try it off with an easy one. Did you know I never heard my dad swear? He never cussed. Okay, I see some head shaking, nodding. That's good. Some shaking. You can't believe it. Well, it's true, okay? Now you got the game here. This is good. So, did you ever hear Hokey Nelly? So, of course, he didn't say it like that. It was more like, Hokey Nelly! Right? So, you see, Dad would come up and say, did you do the bolts? I'm like, yeah, sure I did, Dad. I did them. Yeah. And he says, did you tighten them up? I'm like, oh, he said, Hokey Nelly! Don't you know, when you put on your shoes, don't you tie your laces? When you put on your shirt, don't you do up the buttons? You put up your pants, you latch them up, or they'll fall off. Hokey Nelly, what's the matter with you? I think you need a kick in the pants. We'll stop that story right there. Okay. I see I got some nods. I see some of you have been working in the shop for my dad. Right? So, you know, Dad was just a kid in World War II, born in 1933, so he never had pleasant memories of war, and he didn't want to tell war stories, but we could trick him into it, you know. We'd say, hey, Dad, you had a lot of older brothers. What did they do during the war, you know? And then he'd tell stories of how they would trick the soldiers. They would give them wrong directions, and they would put salt in the gas tanks or sugar, whatever it was, you know. So we could get him to tell stories, right? So I was supposed to say, did you know, right? No. Did you know he would do that? So, Dad's family was poor. They fixed their own clothes. They did their own socks and shoes fixing. They ate anything they could find. Mom was saying sometimes as kids they'd walk to farms, ask if there was any bread that they could share with them, right? So did you know Dad got caught stealing apples? No. Oh, well, wait. He said he might have found them when he was accidentally taking a shortcut through an orchard. So then my wife reminded me, actually, Dad also got caught stealing oranges with his brother Bert. And so the first story, when they were stealing apples, was like he was 7 years old. How old do you think he was in the second story, stealing oranges? They were like 70. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. The police caught them. It's a good thing they let them go, or they'd still be in California right now. Right? So, did you know Dad would eat chicken right down to the bone? He would crunch it and suck the marrow out of the thing. If we had drumsticks, because my mom would make the best fried chicken, he'd say, "Why don't you eat your bone there? Come on." Well, Dad, I don't like to eat all that slimy stuff on the end. Did you know he would lick his plate? Yeah. Okay, some nods. So you've been over at the house for supper on a Sunday, right? My dad would do that. Did you know, as a kid, Dad got to know Mom at the YMCA. He was in clubs, playing soccer, table tennis, stuff like that, and she would sashay around and keep an eye on him. Yeah. Did you know about when Dad played with Mom's ear and twirled her hair in her finger? Oh, my brothers know this one. You're nodding your heads there. Ah. So, it was on a date, right? Sort of. Mom was in the front with her boyfriend, and Dad was in the back with his girlfriend. After they dropped off Dad's girlfriend, he started playing with Mom's ear, tickling her neck, twirling her hair, and she'd giggle and blush. The other dude never knew what's going on. Well, as they say, oh, what was it? Where it says, did you know, right? So, did you know Dad smoked? When I was small, I remember walking out of church, all the men would light up. But that was not a Boundary Road. When we got to Boundary Road, that did not fly. So Dad had to smoke at home. But once he forgot his pipe and his jacket, right? And good old Bert, number 3, who was just a little tyke, he pulled that pipe out, stuck it in his mouth, looking over Dad. So Dad didn't know. Bert's showing off the pipe there. Yeah, did you know? So did you know Dad in work, his first job in Canada, after only a week, they gave him pay and a nice little pink slip of paper. He couldn't read English. Did you know he had no idea he had just been fired? So Chris mentioned he started building his own company. He started his first project in the basement of his house. And did you know he put that together and it didn't fit out the door? He had to cut it in half, take it out, and put it back together again. Did you know Dad taught us to play chess, checkers, soccer, ping pong, billiards, golf, tennis. He taught us to play hard and work hard. He taught us to weld, to love steel, to drive, to do our best. He showed us to be faithful, to be truthful, to care about others, to jump first and look afterwards, to get in the mud and get dirty, to follow God, to sing and to pray. Did you know Dad was the best?
And look what I get to follow. My dad was very talented. I believe he started to learn a new language. Right, Mom? Esperanto? I won't even try to say it, but it always got Mom going. I don't know what's going on. I'm Bert, by the way. Number 3. Good. I'm a proud son of a proud father. Dad didn't like the spot. He was humble. He was not big on words, but his words were big. When he spoke, it was best that you listened. And when he didn't speak, it was best that you listened. He taught mostly by action and demonstration. He showed us how to work hard all day, half the night, and occasionally all night, without grumbling or complaining, teaching us how to be thankful. He showed me how to give, starting with tithing when I was very young. Tithing off my earnings. When I can handle that, and I was a bit older, he upped the privilege. He showed me how to give out of my abundance, over and above my tithe. And then yet, when I was a little older and I could handle that, he upped the privilege yet again. He showed me how to give till it hurt, demonstrating always, never giving to get, but always rejoicing in God's blessings. He always would say that you can't outgive God. He also showed us how to give up our time, going on mission trips, and you've heard all the stuff, and helping others out with his house and jobs and tuition and stuff. He was very generous. He literally gave of himself. He worked hard, played hard. He loved all his boys and all his girls, all the grandkids and great-grandkids. He loved his wife. Most of all, he loved Jesus. Well done.
When I was a little boy, there was a little sign in the house. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. It's still there, 60 years later. That is my dad. He served the Lord. Commitment, dedication, love.
Don't I have amazing brothers? Wow. I don't even have to say anything now. It's just, they stole all my stuff too. So now I can be short. No, I'm still going to say them. Hey, just before I start, I just wanted to let you guys know that social media, emails, all this stuff, I have literally been blown away with the support that I've got. iMessage, Instagram, Facebook, phone calls, chats, WhatsApp, sorry. Just blown away. The support, literally hundreds of messages to me. And it's nice to see it used in a good way. So thank you very much for that. I'm sure it's from my brothers as well. Well, you know about Dad having 9 boys with the age gap of 13 years between the youngest and the oldest. For perspective and contemplation, just consider that before I turned 6 years old, I had 5 brothers. Like, it's amazing. I mean, obviously my dad was a great lover. And obviously his Y chromosomes were very fast swimmers. Yeah, it was the summer of '65 that Dad started some small fabricating projects in his basement. And I know my brothers have mentioned it, but I was there holding Mom's hand on the step, watching The sparks, the hammering, the grinding, the tools, the spray paint, the noise, the flames. Like, wow. The whole house stunk, smoke, steel, paint, and but it was amazing. And when he tried to ship the railing, it didn't fit out the door. We heard that, but he put it back together, and as he's driving away, it broke. You forgot that part. It broke on the truck. And so we're much better fabricators nowadays, but and one of the ways Dad had of connecting with his boys was work, right? Go to the shop on Saturdays. It was a form of babysitting or slave labor, but it was a respite for Mom. And my actual earliest recollection of going to work with my dad was before I turned 6 years old, going to help clean out his first shop in Richmond, an old foundry. And I just recall for the first time in my life seeing a rat. It was so huge, and there's my dad chasing this rat around. It just sticks with me. Anyways, he never caught it. And then when Dad couldn't get an occupancy permit for that place in Richmond, he moved to an old peat factory out on Union Street in Vancouver, where us boys would hang out on Saturdays, and we'd use a file to clean off all the weld slag and spatter, and then we'd use a brush to paint the glue lamp connections or paint each other. That happened occasionally too. And then as pay, this was our pay. We got to search around the neighborhood for pop bottles. And if we found any, we could go to the corner store and get a Pep Chew or a Double Bubble. But Dad, he taught me a strong work ethic from my early youth. I know what you're thinking. If Benny was so busy working, did he ever have quality time for AKS, the boys? And yes, he did. I never felt unloved or neglected or left out. Growing up, Dad introduced us to fast food. Obviously with Mom's influence, so she didn't have to make a meal for all her hungry wolves. I particularly remember going to A&W in New Westminster with the servers on roller skates and sitting in the truck after a hard day of work, having a burger. Dad loved Kentucky Fried Chicken. He loved Pick-a-Pop and McDonald's fries, which we all enjoyed on Saturday nights while watching Hockey Night in Canada. I recall a story of when he went to McDonald's and he ordered fries. He'd go, "Hi, I'd like 12 fries." And the cashier would look confused and say, "That's all you want? 12 fries? Because I don't really know how many come in a container." And then I don't know if it was his accent or what, but he'd have to clarify, "No, I want 12 like individual orders of fries. And that's all, nothing else." Because then he'd go down to KFC, get the Kentucky Fried Chicken, go to Pick-a-Pop, and that's our three-way meal on Saturdays. It's wonderful. White Spot, we went to White Spot for special treats. Why White Spot? Well, besides having the best burger in town, Dad, before he started his business, he worked a part-time second job at the White Spot on Southwest Marine. It's no longer there, but he was a janitor just to help save up extra money for his new venture. Dad loved sports. We talked about that. He's a sportsman, particularly soccer, ping pong, tennis, golf, and he was really good at them. I didn't play tennis with him because he always beat me, but he was no good at hockey. But I was probably 12 years old, and we lived in Killarney, and my team didn't have a coach. And I think I volunteered my dad, and surprisingly, he agreed to be my soccer coach. 8 other brothers, but he had time for me. And he'd drive us around, pick up some friends, and we'd drive around Vancouver. It only lasted for 1 year, though. I never really understood the time commitment, the pressure and stress of owning and operating a business when I was younger. I do now. And when the 10-acre property next door was for sale, on Daly Road, I remember saying, like, the interest rates, remember in 1988, they were 83, they were up at 20%, they were going down to 10%, and it's like, you got to buy it. We got to buy it, just buy it. And how naive and simplistic I was, right? Like thousands of dollars. and just didn't understand. I never did hear it swear, but I did hear him say, thank you, Hokey Nelly, right? It's a reoccurring word, Hokey Nelly, all the time. More at my younger brothers than me, but I never did see Dad cry, but he did tell me once when I went to see him crying about my finances that he understood, and on occasion he would kind of hid in the little cubby under the stair in the old shop and cried. He taught and modeled so much to me about faith and generosity. You heard it already. You can't outgive God. That was his slogan. So reflecting on Dad and his life, I'm reminded how much we are as parents model, we influence the behaviors, the thoughts, the values, the vocabulary, the love, the kindness, the generosity, the work ethic, for better or worse, for our kids. And so today, I ask you to choose that you will model for the better. Everything you do. I'm so grateful for my dad, his example to me. I have been truly blessed. I love you, Dad.
We are going to sing a song. I've just got to grab an extra mic.
Hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. When he shall come with trumpet sound, oh, may I then in him be found, dressed in his righteousness alone, faultless to stand before the throne. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand.